Well, for more on the challenges of modern firefighting, we go live now to Ten Eyck in Sacramento. He's the Wildfire Urban Interface Fire Programs Coordinator at the International Association of Firefighters. Thanks so much for making the time for us here this morning. So just to start, what's your assessment of where things stand right now? Do you get the sense that firefighters are getting a better handle on things now before the winds pick up again? Is the worst over, do you think?
Well, thank you for having me, Kim. And yes, I think that's an accurate assessment. If you look at the acreage, you haven't seen increases in acreage for the last several days. And once the Santa Ana wind event subsided, the firefighters, led with the leadership of the incident management teams, did a fantastic job on air and ground resources, perimeter control, and also overhauling interior fire and unburned islands within the incident perimeters out there. There's still a lot more to do, and I know that there's an additional wind event that's scheduled to come up, but right now they've been holding things well in hand in a tragic situation.
Yeah, it certainly has been tragic for so many people, and there have been plenty of questions about what could have been done to prevent these fires from getting so bad. And one of the things that is mentioned often is that there's too much brush around houses, which helps spread the fire. Was that a factor here, do you think?
Well, first, this was a generational fire. You had Santa Ana winds with Category 1 and 2 hurricane force winds in that urban populated area with a lot of wildland in between, and also in steep terrain features that were in alignment with the winds. So it made for this catastrophic event. But to deepen into your question right there, absolutely, fuel removal will decrease risks. Small and large scale, the more you do, the more that you're able to make structures more defensible, safeguard people that are trying to evacuate, emergency resources going into the incident. And so you're correct on that part. So it always plays a role, and it's a huge investment.
Now, intuitively, that makes sense. And anecdotally, we've heard success stories of homes that did clear the brush, or places like the Getty Museum that did the so-called hardening from bitter experience from previous fires. And it's seems to have worked, but some experts say once buildings start catching fire, they provide their own fuel for that fire, and so what you do about brush clearing is basically irrelevant. For instance, we saw buildings go up that were just surrounded in a sea of concrete.
Yeah, you're that structure to structure thread or spread via whether it's residential or commercial is a real threat. And when you refer to the Getty home hardening, that is an essential component to go with fuels treatment. And also because each individual occupancy structure, whether it's residential or commercial, have to take a look at the construction, but also the vegetation that's surrounding it, so that when there's embers being thrown 1-2 miles out in front in a wind-driven event like this, they don't have a receptive fuel bed to land into, because once it ignites a structure, then the ones that are close by, which we call exposures, there's that real threat that occurred here on structure-to-structure threat. So it's a multidimensional approach: the fuel reduction, the home hardening for community resilience.
Do we need to strengthen brush clearing rules? I know many cities already have them. Is it maybe more important to enforce them then?
I think it's essential. I think that in this regulation, so for example, dictate how fuels, how growth is cleared, how it's removed. And I think it's a good opportunity right now in light of this to examine those and to remove obstacles so that we can get more work done.
Yeah. Listen, we only have a minute left, but I did want to ask you this to look forward, because of course, I mean, they're still fighting the fires. The danger's far from over, but thoughts are already turning to rebuilding. So how can we rebuild differently, better, to become more resilient for the next big fire?
You're in the tragedy, they'll rise again, that community there, and you're 100% correct. So there's an opportunity right now to take a hard look at this and also provide sufficient emergency response staffing. Let fire service professionals be the lead in developing these community programs for home hardening and resilience, and also fuel removal, shaded, unshaded fuel breaks, which will lessen risk. It never 100% gets rid of it, but the more you invest, the more return you get. Thank you.
All right, listen, we know there will unfortunately be more big fires, so the more we can do to prevent that, it's an important message. Really appreciate you delivering it. Joe Ten Eyck, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.